Welcome back to PRN Test Drive. I'm James, and this is the 2025 Range Rover P530 Autobiography long wheelbase. Now, with a purchase price of near $200,000 Canadian, this thing has got it all. I mean, this is the top end of luxury. I have never experienced this amount of luxury from any vehicle ever, and I am an absolute fan of it. And I just want to take you through all the luxury stuff you get, and also just let you know how it is to drive in conditions such as these, where it's blowing snow, blowing winds, and just the death of winter. Now, like Niall said, back in 2024, when he got to drive one of these P530 autobiographies, you don't need some car reviewer to go and tell you to buy this vehicle, because if you have that level of wealth, you're just gonna do it, and you're gonna be absolutely satisfied. Now, there's no big changes for 2025 from 2024, but I will say that I think I have the better color. I've got it in British racing green with like a matte finish, and it looks phenomenal. So while I'm outside, I'll tell you what I think of the exterior. Design-wise, I still really like it. It's still classic Range Rover that we're always used to seeing. The daytime running LEDs look very good. The front looks, elegant. It's just pure elegance throughout this whole vehicle. When you look at it from the side, I have the autobiography badge. I've also got door handles that retract into the body when you're driving, and I am happy to say that I've had a morning where there was a ton of ice on the vehicle, and my door handles and my power folding mirrors were able to bust through a lot of the ice, and I was able to get in absolutely no problem. So that's really good news. If you look at it from the back, I love the way that the tail lights are oriented. I also like how the trunk has like a dual opening feature where you can have the tailgate or you can just open the top end. You can also have a seat if you want to, and I can even control the air suspension from back there. So I can lower the vehicle, I can lower all the seats from back there as well. You can do everything you need to do without actually having to go around to the passenger seat and then fold the seats down. You can do everything from the trunk, and I think that's really cool. But since it's absolutely freezing and blowing snow, I honestly don't even know if you can hear me because of all this wind. Let's hop inside. We'll talk about its powertrain and all the luxury items you get inside. So now that you can probably hear me a lot better on the interior, let me tell you what's powering this absolute football field of a vehicle. It is a 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 engine. You heard me right. We are in 2025 and Range Rover is still putting a V8 in their P530s. Now with this engine, I'm getting 530 horsepower, 553 pound-feet of torque, and that is a phenomenal number for a big behemoth vehicle like this one. It's also paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission. I've got air suspension, I've got all-wheel steering. You name it, this car has it. 360-degree cameras, parking sensors, digital rear view camera, a really crazy interior, which we're about to go over, and I can also tow. My towing capacity is 8,200 pounds. Now, also, since I've got a long wheelbase version, I've got a third row, which also has a ton of features, which I'm about to go over, but it also means that I get a lot more legroom than just your standard Range Rover. And personally, when it comes to Range Rovers, the bigger, the better. The more Range Rover I can have, the better off I am. But since I'm sitting on the interior, let's go over it. Let me squeeze myself into that third row. Let's get going. All right, so now I'm sitting back here in the third row. I do have the seats folded down just so it was a little bit easier for me to get back here. But what's really cool is the seats can fold forward for you, absolutely no problem. And you have a good amount of space back here. The seats, of course, are all leather. All the interior trim here you're gonna notice is absolutely fully leathered. I have heated seats back here. I can move the seat. I've got a cup holder. I've got my own vents back here, as well as a USB-C port. And of course, in case somebody in the front forgets that you're here, you can also fold the seat front and back while you're in the back seat as well. I've got just enough headroom here as well where I don't really mind being back here at all as a fully grown adult. So if you're looking for this for your 3-row rides, you're gonna be pretty comfortable back here. All right, so now I'm in the second row for the Range Rover P530. And again, a great place to spend time. You can see I got these white seats, these leather materials absolutely everywhere. There isn't a single thing inside this vehicle that feels cheap. And it kind of gives me the vibe that this vehicle is meant to be driven in just as much as it is meant to be driven. I think you get the best of both worlds, whether you're sitting here or you're sitting up front, and that's really wonderful. So let's go over what we got here. First of all, the seats are extremely comfortable, heated and ventilated, of course. I've got my own vent here, and I've also got another set of vents right up there. I've also got my own climate control back here. It is, of course, tri-zone climate control in this case for this vehicle, so I can control the airflow, and I can also push and pull the knobs to get my heated and ventilated seat settings. Very nice. When you look at the door, I've got a Meridian surround sound system speaker. They're pretty much everywhere, and it is like a top class audio system. But also, elephant in the room, or thing that is right in front of me, is I do have a nice screen. Now it's going to show me my location. I can also connect to the Wi-Fi. I can click the Wi-Fi info. It'll tell me the name and also the password right there in front of my face. And then I can also connect an HDMI cable into the center right here, and that will enable us to, maybe you can do a PS5 because we do have an actual plug right here, or you can plug in an Amazon Fire Stick. Whatever you have, you can plug in, connect to the Wi-Fi, and there you go. And you also have a set of headphones right here for your listening pleasure that will connect to the vehicle. So in case you don't want to hear the music that the driver is playing, you can use these. Very cool. Also on the door panel, we have our seat adjustments. Both sides, driver and passenger side, both have memory seats, 3 settings of them. So if you're different passengers getting driven around, you can set the memory. What's really cool though is I do have some sunshades. So I can do this right here, pull up on the window control, and bang, there we go. The poor people have been blocked out. Let's see, I want to see the peasants again. I can put it down. I can also do it for the other side from sitting here by clicking a button. I can also turn on my reading lights, and I can mute the speakers for the rear, which is very cool. I could do a road trip in this seat, absolutely no problem. I've got a screen for my own entertainment. I've got heated, ventilated seats, so no matter what condition, no matter if I'm hot or cold, I am comfortable, and that is where the Range Rover is really awesome. Last but not least, I've got this guy that's going to fold down. Now, Niall had this kind of screen that could fold down and up. I do not have that on mine. We have cup holders that pop out, and then of course a little bit of storage, and this is where you're going to connect your USB-C port, and also your HDMI cables will connect right there and interface with that screen. All right, so in the business end, up front in the Range Rover P530 Autobiography, and what's not to love, right? We've got the open wood trim. I've got literally wood on my steering wheel, which just looks really cool. I've got white all around the steering wheel. So if you're a dirty person with dirty hands, this vehicle is going to expose you because it's going to get dirty quick. I'm keeping my steering wheel clean just for the record. Now, when you look at the door, we do have a Meridian sound system speaker right there. Very good. Like I said, it is phenomenal. I have 3 sets of memory seating. So does my passenger. I can adjust everything. My seats are massaged, ventilated, and heated, of course. Same thing as well for the passenger in this case too. I have a little button that I can press to put the vehicle in the access height. It does it automatically, but let's say you don't have that set up. You can easily push that button and it will do that. And I can even control the rear shades, like I showed you before, from the front seat. I can have them up or down. So say the passenger doesn't know how to do it, or they want me to do it for them because they're that rich, I can just click up on that and do it very quickly. I like the position of the door handle as well, because it's really like you just kind of reach over and pop the door handle. It's very ergonomic, right? My steering wheel is also going to be automatically adjustable, which is very nice. Metallic paddle shifters, don't need them, but very glad they're here. And I also have the cruise control settings on my right-hand side and everything else for the volume and different things like that with the gauge cluster on my left-hand side. Speaking of the gauge cluster, not much has changed. It's kind of the same one that you see on the Range Rover Sport, the Range Rover Defender. It's small but effective, and that's all you really need. And I think that's really cool because it's very nice in terms of, customizability. I can customize the left and right panels, which is very cool. And it has a couple of different themes and stuff like that. So you can have a classic, a map focus one, or just like a general focus one that looks really good. And you can kind of see any kind of information that you want right here. I also do have a heads up display. Like I said, digital rear view mirror, and then I've got the digital infotainment display. Now you do kind of need an engineering degree to understand a lot of the stuff going on here. It's a lot. It takes a lot of sitting down and getting used to it and understanding where things are, setting up your favorites and preferences. It's gonna take a lot in that aspect because last year, or or at least in the Sport, I had kind of knobs here that I could adjust the HVAC control pretty quickly. That's completely gone. I've got to completely do it from the infotainment display. I don't hate it, don't love it. I'm a physical button guy through and through. Really the only two physical buttons inside here, besides like the door stuff, is the start stop button and the parking, which is interesting. But I do like the software: wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. You can control all your guide or all your drive modes from here. You've also got the parking. You can see your 360-degree camera, get a 3D render of the vehicle as well. It's very nice. But again, you're gonna wanna sit and go through it. But if you can afford this thing, I think you have time to go ahead and look at this thing in depth. Now, I do got a little bit of storage right down here, wireless charging pad. Everything's felt, right? Everything's like felt. Everything that's storage is felt. The nice gear selector here is a nice material. There's no piano black. I love this open wood trim with the white. Looks really, really nice. And of course, it's not a true Range Rover without a fridge included. So you got like a cool box here. You can turn it on, keep your stuff warm. I can move the cup holders out of the way, and then I've got a ton more storage as well. Two kind of storage spaces for the passenger. So I've got the glove box, and then you've kind of got the space above the glove box as well. So that's gonna do it for the interior tour of the Range Rover P530 Autobiography. Let's get this V8 out onto the road. It's a little bit wintry out, so let's just take it for a drive. All right, so on the road now with the Range Rover P530 Autobiography. What a place to be. I mean, it is just luxury, luxury, luxury on the road, sitting in the interior. I mean, I've got speakers inside my headrest. See, this thing folds around my head. Speakers are in here, and it's actually cool when you're actually driving and you take a phone call. You actually hear the person's voice right behind in your ear. Same thing with like a GPS navigation. If you have that turned on, you hear it right behind you. It's very cool, and there's no way you miss what they say because you hear them so clearly through your headrest speakers. The passenger has it as well. I mean, it's just things that you wouldn't expect to be here, or like that you wouldn't expect out of a normal vehicle. The Range Rover has it, and of course it does. It's worth almost $200,000. I mean, really, honestly, I don't have many bad things at all to say about it. You know, it's expensive, and that's what it is. But you expect that because you're getting so many high-end luxury items. All the materials in here are just the highest of class. When I am driving, you know, it makes these disgusting pothole-filled crater of the moon surface level roads here that I have in Quebec feel like a freshly paved road because it just deletes the bumps. You know, the Range Rover's like, what bumps? We don't experience bumps in the Range Rover. It's ridiculous. But to add to it all, to add to all the luxury, I've got a V8. So I do have a little bit of power here in this football field of a vehicle. So let's go ahead and put it in dynamic, and we're also gonna throw the transmission into sport mode as well. That's how you get your peak performance. Let's give it some beams here. Oh my God. No problem getting up to speed. Oh yeah, that's good. That is good. You still hear a little bit of that V8 rumble as well. It's not the loudest thing in the world, but you do get it. You still hear it. I've got paddle shifters in case you want to take things even further. But honestly, I've just been letting the automatic transmission do its thing. It does it really well. There's a slight bit of turbo lag from that twin turbo, but think about it. It's got to get this big behemoth up and moving. But trust me, once it is up and moving, you're absolutely flying in this thing. And I hope the mic is slightly picking up the exhaust notes in this thing. Really, really cool. Now, even in dynamic mode, I am absolutely just full of comfort, right? Just to the nines. I don't even feel it. Usually I'm driving around in comfort mode with the transmission in just normal, because this isn't really something you buy to be sporty, but it's wonderful that it can. And I just love hearing the startup of a V8. When I start my morning, I've got my coffee, but I can just press the start button and it's better than coffee because the startup is so good with a V8. It's kind of loud, a cold start. It's the loudest I think this vehicle really does get at the top, and there's no like variable exhaust or anything like that, so there's no button where I can, you know, kind of let it loose. So that's really the most that I hear it when I'm actually doing it. But you can give it a couple of revs and you can still hear it quite nicely. Visibility is obviously no issue. I've got blind spots. You know, I don't have that cool Hyundai feature where, the camera will come up for the blind spot, but you don't really need it. The mirrors are absolutely big enough to show you, and I've got that digital rear view mirror, which I absolutely love. Of course, when my child is in the car, I can't make use of it because I need to watch her through the mirror in the back seat, so I can't use it. But, if you have a digital one, you'd obviously be fine. But when she's not in the car, I just throw it on really quickly. It's so easy to turn on and off. I really like it. It's the standard thing now that the digital stuff is doing, but I am here for it. It's very, very high quality. I want to say it's probably one of the highest quality ones I've seen during the day and during the night as well. That goes for all the cameras on this vehicle. Handling is okay. It does stiffen up in sport mode a little bit, but it's just smooth. It's just buttery smooth. I can just operate this vehicle with like one finger, and I think that's what's really important, right? Because you want to be comfortable. You're not really lighting up the track times. You're going on your road trips. You're running your errands and stuff like that. You're not really doing that much speeding, more or less. I mean, this thing gets up to speed in comfort mode without you even realizing it. I mean, you're going like 130 on the highway sometimes, definitely respecting the speed limits, and you don't even notice. You start picking up speed, you don't even realize, because this thing is just so comfortable. I said it in the Range Rover Sport. I said that, it feels like we're floating above the road. We're not actually on the road, and the same can be said, but on another level for the P530 Autobiography. It's just another level of comfort. It's another level of just air suspension. It's just wonderful. Now, I know this is a vehicle that maybe is more oriented to people that are going to get driven inside of it, but honestly, I prefer the driver's seat. I love driving this thing. You can argue that, sure, the wood here is a little slippery, but it just feels so nice in the hands. And I will say, this is one of the hottest steering wheels I've ever had. Like, I turn the steering wheel on, and then within about 10 minutes, the top of the steering wheel is on fire. I don't know if that's because there's a wood trim around it, but oh my goodness, it gets really, really hot. But that's good, because I've had like -20 weather this week, and so it's really been good. So speaking of -20 weather in snowy conditions, right now the roads are once again cleared off and dry because it started to warm up a little bit. But this morning I was out driving, it was blowing snow a little bit, and there was a lot of snow on the road because the plows hadn't passed yet. It was quite early. And this thing handled it no problem. I put it into, snow and gravel mode, and I could feel the vehicle adjusting itself. I could feel it, thinking of what wheel needs more power, back or front. I could kind of feel it sending power to either one just based off the noises that I could hear. And it was a very interesting thing to hear, but it's also a great system. I felt safe. The rear end never really slid that much. Usually with bigger, longer vehicles, I notice in the snow a lot that the rear end tends to slide a lot, but with this one, not at all. I do have all-wheel steering, which does make a difference. That means the back wheels will kind of counter steer a little bit to the front wheels to kind of give you a better turning radius, which makes this thing a really good mall crawler. I think it makes it really, really good. Now, it's not the hybrid version or anything like that, so obviously fuel economy will be a little bit I'm doing 14.1 liters per 100 kilometers, which actually isn't that bad. It's kind of surprising. Done about like 400 kilometers by this point in the week, and 14.1 with a V8, I think I'll take it. Now, I know the argument is, Range Rovers are, potentially easy to steal. They're highly stolen in some parts of the world, and, they just don't last that long. There's a lot of problems with them. And I mean, sure, I guess. I can't really speak to it because I don't have it, and obviously my vehicle has not been stolen because I'm here. I'm sitting in it, so we're good on that front. But reliability, I only get it for a week, so I can't really speak to it. That is where I'm going to need you, the owner, to do it. But I think when you reach this level of vehicle price point, I feel like the owners that are buying this are not keeping it long enough to notice any real horror stories unless they happen right away. Unless they happen within the first like 2 or 3 months. I don't think a lot of people, the first owners of these vehicles, I don't think they're driving it past 60,000 kilometers. That's what I think. I don't know if that's the case. If you're an owner of one of these and you have it past 60,000, feel free to correct me, but I just think when you're at this level of wealth, you just don't keep cars for that long. So that's gonna about do it for my full tour of the Range Rover P530 Autobiography. What a week it's been. What a luxurious experience. I mean, I thought the Sport that I drove last year was like, man, I thought that thing was top level. I was impressed by everywhere. I did like the fact that it was a plug-in hybrid. That was a very nice touch. But I would take the V8 over it, I will tell you that much. But this one is just on a whole other level. I thought I'd seen everything from Range Rover when I drove the Sport, but until you drive this one of these things, the long wheelbase version, ton of room, ton of luxurious stuff, you just haven't experienced true luxury. I know there's Cadillac and stuff like that, but I think Range Rover is kind of a little bit above them, at least in terms of luxurious. I know there's a Cadillac Escalade B that's this, you know, kind of behemoth of a thing. Sure, that you can say that the performance is maybe a little bit better there, but luxury-wise, I think Range Rover still got everybody beat. So as always, let me know what you think. I want to know every single thought that you have on this Range Rover P530. I want to know if you're an owner, why would you buy it? Why would you not? Would you spend 200 grand on this thing, or would you go and buy something else? Because there's, you know, you can buy kind of like a base level Corvette for, you know, I think 150 grand here in Quebec, and maybe even less if you go in the used market. So would you buy something like that? Would you buy like a more performance car, or would you option this massive luxury vehicle? Let me know. With that being said, make sure you subscribe for more videos like this one. I will see you in the next week. See you in the next car. Take care.